I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
This is Brian.
I'm Holly.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
So welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 62nd installment, the 63rd installment.
Get it right, Father.
Of the Tex-Trek podcast. I'm trying. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 11, Perpetual Infinity. Written by Alan McElroy and Brandon Schultz, and directed by, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, Maja Vrvilo. Cool thing about Maja is that she directed the Short Treks episode Runaway.
The Tilly episode,
yeah,
right?
Which I thought was the worst one, but I know Dave really liked it.
I liked it. My only thing with that, and I don't know, did you think, when you say worst, did you think it was bad?
Yeah, I thought it was a little under mediocre.
To me, it felt like it was like a 50 minute episode scrunched into 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever. How, 10 minutes?
It was like 15 minutes.
Yeah. It had problems, but I thought it was well done.
Yeah, it felt like it cost like $20 to make and took about 30 minutes to write.
I bet if you were to look at that and look at some of the special effects they used, even if only for that first shot of the disco, that you would agree would cost more than $20.
I know, but I was.
You're being facetious?
Yes.
Oh my god.
But no, enough about that. She directed this episode, which I did really like. I
found myself just looking to check on the writers, and I was going to ask you about them. I only looked up, I guess, the first one that was listed. Because I really liked the episode, and that first writer, when I looked at his credits, I was like, oh, I would not have guessed he would have turned out an episode I would particularly like, because he'd worked on, I don't know if it was the animated series Spawn or the comic or whatever, but his credits seemed a little lightweight.
Well, he also wrote Obel for Charon.
Is he? Okay.
The Star Trek Discovery episode previously. Who cares what he wrote that wasn't Star Trek related?
I do. And that's we always talk about what they've written previous to this.
I know, but the rest of television doesn't really matter.
That's an interesting theory to just throw out there as concrete.
But yeah, we're just all gonna give our opening statements and let you know our spoiler-free thoughts on this episode, just kind of a general impression that it left. Any volunteers to go first? Or should I start things off?
I guess I'll say I thought it was an awesome episode. To me, it felt like Terminator meets Time Traveler's Wife meets the Avengers Infinity War.
Oh, wow. That's some bold stuff. Do you feel like when you say Infinity War, was it the weight of the character stuff, or what was hanging in the balance, or
what was hanging in the balance?
Yeah.
But it did. It to me, it struck me as being both very cinematic and very comic book-like.
Interesting.
Comic book in a good way, though?
Yes, comic book in a good way. I mean, I was thinking the Red Angel totally. She needs her own movie like Captain Marvel or something.
I gotta say that suit looked pretty cool as we've seen
does.
More of it. That design will not go to waste because they've already used it. Now that we've seen it not glowing, I'm like, man, that looks neat when it folds up and all that stuff.
More gold tech.
But yeah, I was like, that's a really cool superhero suit. It should be alongside Iron Man and Captain America.
Well, Fatheree does love his time travel stories in Star Trek, so maybe we can get a full, straight-up time travel show for Trek.
There was a time when I really advocated for that. I kind of wanted that to be the 5th, I guess, live-action Trek show. Enterprise was almost that, so we kind of got that.
The problem, I mean, having run a Star Trek role-playing game called Guardians of Forever that was basically a game focused entirely on time travel, the problem with the way Trek does it is the rules change for every episode.
Yeah.
They have different, and that's cool for telling cool and interesting stories. It means you get to do all the different time travel stuff you want. That's really cool, but if you're going to do an ongoing series, you kind of got to pick a set of rules and stick with it, like Doctor Who mostly does.
I would say Doctor Who plays pretty fast and loose with it. But
and 90-something% of the episodes can be explained with like 2 or 3 rules.
If you slingshot around the sun, time travel will work one way. If you're using red matter, it works
I'm not saying
way,
you can't come up with some hand-wavy explanations. I'm just...
They clearly didn't have an overarching plan when they first did it.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that because Star Trek does standalone time travel stories, and those standalone stories are interesting and fun, and that's all that really matters. I don't care if it's consistent with the last standalone time travel story. So,
Brian, how do you feel about the time travel in this episode and just this episode overall?
I really enjoyed this episode. I can't really divorce it from the previous one. This just feels like a 2-parter to me.
And you did watch them back to back.
I did actually. Yes, I watched them last night and tonight. So, and I really, I thought I liked the last week's episode, Red Angel, and this one just made me like last week's even more. I thought it elevated it by pulling because this one was so strong. The technobabble for this week's episode was whatever. I was just kind of rolling my eyes at it. I still have a question, actually, about one particular issue that maybe they answered and I missed it.
I'm sure we'll get around to it.
But the characters and the plot was so well done, I didn't care that the technobabble didn't seem to be well thought out and just seemed to be whatever the story needs to push us in the right direction. I was fine with that because that direction they took us was always interesting, which is rare. And oftentimes I feel a little forced when the technobabble is pushing me around. But I felt like, no, this is interesting. This is cool. I'm excited by this. I'm excited by that. And I really love the character stuff and the growth and the development of everything in the last 2 episodes. It feels like we're paying off a huge pile of threads that they've spent the last 10 episodes building up just in last week's and this week's episode. So I really like this one.
I have to agree. This is maybe my favorite episode of the season. Fighting it out, I think, with the... what was the name of the episode that was on Talos? Is it Talos 5?
Talos 4.
Talos 4? Yeah. What was that episode?
If memory serves.
Yes, that was an episode where I felt it had like a strong connection to classic Trek, and I was drawn by a lot of nostalgia on that one. This one was all about the now and the moving forward, though. I thought there was great character interaction. Some of the best acting the show has had in its entire run between Sonequa Martin Green and the actress playing her mother were doing fantastic. There was cool action with Georgiou going toe-to-toe with excuse me, with a we don't know what we're going to call it yet, the Control Leland hybrid. Controland?
Yeah, we're working on that.
We're working on it. We should workshop that.
Controland. I like it.
Yeah, all right. Controland it is.
Yes.
I felt that the script was elevated too. It was there were almost no points where I was groaning as I was a little bit in the previous episode at times. So one of the tops for me.
Yeah, better dialogue in this one than last week's. I will say that. Better, sharper script, more polished.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna build off of a lot of the things that y'all were saying. And that this episode really does feel like an improvement over last week. And I can kind of imagine that in the writing stages and maybe even in the production, they were kind of thinking of last week as the episode to build up to and kind of set this one up.
Right.
And it works out in the long run. And I think it is very appropriate to think of this as a 2-part story. We have the Esau 4 2-parter. And... The episode really embodied Star Trek Discovery doing a lot of the things that it does best, and they have moved things into the final stretch of the season. We're in like that last third of the season, the third act, I guess, of the season arc, and they have amped up the action, the emotion, we got a bunch of cool revelations with the Red Angel and how all of that works.
It feels like the stakes are higher.
Yeah, the stakes are higher, just like the general excitement has really ramped up.
Yeah.
So we're in a really cool position now to go into the final 3 episodes of the season. I'm predicting the last 2 episodes are kind of going to be a 2-part story. I think it's going to be a big epic finale to the
Makes
season.
sense.
Based on some of the things that like a lot of the actors have said and producers on the show. They're really hyping up like the finale of the season. So we're in for something that will supposedly be spectacular.
Nice.
If they deliver on it,
Bold words.
We'll have to wait and see, but they're teasing that it's going to be something big.
I was just thinking, structure-wise, this episode pretty much fulfills what I want out of Disco, in the sense that it served very strongly as a standalone episode with emotional arcs that were fulfilled within the space of the episode, and a really strong ending with Spock and Burnham, but it was very clearly part of the larger tapestry. So that for me, it's an ideal Disco style.
I guess. And to me, it really feels like it's sitting on the shoulders of the last week's episode. This episode isn't that standalone.
But if you think about it, like as far as like the way they structured it, it essentially last episode was building up to it, and this episode was all about her. We'll think of it as the Burnham and her mom episode.
Yeah, like there's a self-contained emotional arc with Burnham.
Yes,
like, excited to meet her mom, meeting her mom, and then what the fallout of that is.
Yeah,
which we will now get into as we transition into our warp speed summary, where we will spoil this entire episode and then analyze it in greater detail.
All right, man, let's hit it.
Our story starts off a mere 5 hours after the cliffhanger ending last week. But Burnham is unconscious, dreaming about her family's last night on Doctori Alpha and the Klingon attack on their colony. She wakes up in sickbay surrounded by Dr. Kolber, Georgiou, and Pike. She's still being treated after nearly choking to death on the toxic atmosphere of Esau 4. The good doctor explains she wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for that dose of tachyon radiation, which reminds us, oh yeah, the Red Angel turned out to be Michael Burnham's frickin' mother, and she showed up to save her daughter's life. As for that 100% match that indicated the Red Angel was Burnham, well, turns out that is not the case, because apparently Dr. Kolber can't tell a mother and daughter's mitochondrial DNA apart. Currently, Mama Burnham is being held on Esau 4. The crew have her in the containment field they set up, but they cannot hold her forever. The way her time travel works is that she can only show up in a specific time temporarily. Eventually, she is snapped back to her home base in the future. They're able to keep her locked in the current time frame for now, but it takes a lot of energy to maintain the containment field. Eventually, she will be yanked away by the forces of the universe itself. Burnham gets out of her medical bed, ecstatic that her mom is not so dead after all, and begins poring over the logs the Disco crew have recovered from the Red Angel suit. We see that when the Burnham fam got attacked by unwanted Klingon house guests 20 years earlier, Mama Burnham donned the Red Angel suit and attempted to jump back in time to warn the family. But when she made her jump, a pair of Klingons opened disruptor fire on her. Instead of going back in time, she ended up 950 years further in the future. And the future had gone to shit. She sets up camp at a seemingly uninhabited planet 50,000 light years away, Terralisium, aka the church planet from the episode New Eden. Control was responsible for the galactic-wide genocide we've seen glimpses of. And Mama Burnham is jumping back in time, trying to find a way to prevent this grim future from happening. On the surface of Esau 4, it is taking more and more energy to keep Mama Burnham in the present. Stamets warns that they can't keep her much longer. Pike beams down to talk to Mama Burnham, who explains that the Control AI is after the Obel for Charon Sphere Archive. She asks Pike to delete that data to ensure Control never gets a hold of it. Well, losing the massive archive of information to keep every world in the Milky Way from dying seems like a small price to pay, so Pike gives the order to erase it all. Turns out, that's a lot easier said than done. The data doesn't want to get deleted. It is somewhat self-aware and is using its vast information to find ways to encrypt and protect itself. Let's stick a pin in that for now and check in on Section 31. Remember Leland getting stabbed in the eye last week? We now know that he was somehow infected by Control. The rogue AI has taken over his body by flooding him with nanotech. Leland is now a walking embodiment of the sinister software, posing as a man, and Control is focused on obtaining the sphere data so it can complete its evolution. Control possessed Leland, or we're just going to call him Control-land from here on out, orders Georgiou and Tyler to secure the sphere data. On the disco, our heroes have a brainstorming session and figure out a possible solution. They come up with a way to transfer the sphere data onto the Red Angel suit and send it traveling forever further and further into the future. This will guarantee that Control will never get to it. They also figure out they can use the energy from some of the leftover dark matter they've been hauling around all season to pull Mama Burnham out of her space-time lock and allow her to permanently exist in the present. Too bad for them that Control-land learns of this plan. He tells Georgiou the Red Angel poses an unacceptable risk to the larger mission. He sends her to steal the data, destroy the time suit, and assassinate Mama Burnham. Georgiou, seemingly jealous of Mama Burnham's relationship with Michael, beams down to ESOF 4 and secretly begins copying the sphere data. She also has a chat with Mama Burnham. They talk about self-sacrifice, motherhood, time travel. Eventually, Mama Burnham mentions that Control considers her an unacceptable threat to the larger mission. Isn't that what Leland said? Georgiou contacts Tyler on a secure channel, while Stamets and Burnham begin preparations for their dark matter plan. Georgiou stops the data transfer and tells Tyler to check up on Leland, to see what he does in the dark. Tyler, who is also suspicious of Leland, sneaks into a secure room on the Section 31 ship. He just so happens to find Leland chilling in there with his face split open, revealing Control's nanotech. Control-land reforms his face and stabs Tyler in the gut. He beams down to ESOF 4 and opens a can of cybernetically enhanced Section 31 whoop-ass. He blasts away at the disco personnel with phasers. He reestablishes his download of the sphere data, currently at 37% complete. He not only destroys the control station needed to lock Mama Burnham into the current time frame, but he even gets a phaser shot through the containment field that destroys the Red Angel suit time crystal. He seems unstoppable until Georgiou steps up. The two engage in a hand-to-hand smackdown. While that fight is going on, Stamets and the two Burnhams determine their only hope is to take down their containment field and allow the suit and Mama Burnham to return to the future. Without her time crystal, though, it seems she won't have any way to return. Daughter and Mother Burnhams say tearful goodbyes to each other. The containment field comes down, a portal opens, and Mama Burnham and the depowered Red Angel suit vanish. Michael and company beam back to the disco, and the ship rains torpedoes down on the ESOF facility. Bad news, though, they didn't get Control-land. He beamed back to his ship and hightailed it out of the system with 54% of the sphere data. We end things with Burnham in her quarters, devastated after losing her mother again. With the Red Angel taken off the board and Control-land over halfway there to obtaining all the sphere data, things seem to be at the lowest. But Spock, of all people, shows up to cheer her up. He tells her that the future is not written yet, and that there is still hope. Instinct and logic together. That is how they will defeat Control in the battle to come. All of history can change with their next move. He sits down to play chess with his foster sister. The board is yours, Michael. The end, for now.
I have a question. Is Mama Burnham ever named?
Yes.
Gabrielle.
She's
Gabrielle?
She's Gabrielle Burnham.
Okay.
And so cool thing about that is that her husband is named Michael. We know that Burnham was named after her dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I might be wrong, but I think the... Well, no, I guess there's like a few angels in the Bible that have names.
Mm-hmm.
But like two prominent ones are Michael and Gabriel.
Right.
Kind of like the male version of her name. So it kind of is an angelic name for the person who turns out to be the Red Angel. And it even kind of sets up that at some point in time, Michael Burnham might wear that Red Angel suit.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that would explain why there was
Nice.
that brain scan that showed that, she... it was a 100% match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of would like them to explain that a little bit better.
I hope we get a better explanation than what we got, because that was probably my biggest disappointment.
Maybe they'll run another filter over it, and it'll read, like, Mama Burnham on the screen.
It's wibbly wobbly, timely, wimey, and she's her own mother or her own grandmother. She's her own grandmother. She's both Gabrielle's mother and Gabrielle's daughter.
That would be a little... incestuous, but by a little I mean a lot.
Well, we were already talking about the possibility of her and Spock earlier.
Yeah, we've already crossed that line.
To jump back to Mama Burnham, though, the actress name is Sonia Son? I don't know how you say it.
She was on The Wire, which I haven't watched. I know that's like one of the best TV shows ever, but like established earlier, I kind of only care about Star Trek.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out because...
You need to broaden your horizons. There are other shows with spaceships out there.
I also watched Babylon 5 and Battlestar Galactica.
Are you aware of Space 1999? No, but she has clearly got some acting chops. She was killing it in this
fantastic.
episode.
Yeah.
And she has a resemblance to Sonequa Martin Green.
Yeah, like
they're believably mother and daughter.
Sometimes you get one or the other when you're portraying like relations, siblings or parent-child. You get a good actor or you get a likeness. And in this case, we got both.
Yeah.
And I kind of have like a fixation on people's accent. Like I kind of pride myself on like an ability to tell like what part of the country people might be from based on their accent. Mm-hmm. Or, what if someone has like a different language than English, like their native language, being able to pick that out. And I love that both of these actresses have a bit of a southern accent. So I looked at it. I knew Sonequa Martin Green was from Alabama. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that, what was her name? Sonia Son?
Yeah.
That sounds like a Mortal Kombat character or something. Like I guess because like there's like Sonya Blade.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's SOHN, so it could be like Son? I'm not 100% sure.
But she was from Georgia.
Okay. That's interesting. Wow, that's just like all the ducks lined up in a row for that acting combo.
Because I noticed like they both have like a little bit of like a southernness in their speaking.
I have a question about the mom. That's kind of a grim question. Was Burnham not supposed to have overheard her being sexually assaulted by the Klingons? Was that not the implication?
So,
but here we saw her seemingly zip off in the suit just as they arrived, like before. They really ain't had time for anything to transpire. Yeah,
they do suggest in season 1 that, Michael Burnham says she heard the Klingons kill her parents. She says, they killed my dad quickly. They took longer with my mother. And they sat down and ate our dinner at the table. So that does imply that, like, her mom was sexually assaulted. But they acknowledge that in this episode when she says, no, my mom died. I heard it.
Okay.
So, and it's still possible.
Yeah, you still could end up there, back in that 2237 something.
Yeah,
whatever year that is.
I'm going to hope that is...
That'll be our
converted.
big happy ending for the season.
The timeline is fixed. No, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Can't we just throw her in front of a car?
Yeah. But
give her the old Edith Keller.
Yes. It did. I will say this: there was a cool special effects scene as the Klingons burst in, and they're like in sort of almost like bullet time slow mo as they fire their bolts from their disruptor rifles.
Called disruptor time.
Nice. That's nice.
I liked their wardrobe too. Like it didn't look like...
I didn't notice it.
It didn't look like
I noticed it. Yeah.
TOS Klingon uniform, but it looked like something that could have been.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it was kind of
Some
like the same design language.
They definitely spent some money on that set too. That whole research lab.
Oh, and I just want to say that like you only got to see them sort of as a family unit for like a minute or so before things got heated. But I liked the sort of interaction. I felt like there was a natural interaction between them. The dad didn't have a whole lot to say, but again, he felt really in the moment in the scene, and I felt like the characters, it was as if they had a pre-existing relationship, like you would want. So just and that was a strong scene too. Did they open with that?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
just
I'm so glad that we got that, because if they had never shown us that, it would have been such a big missed opportunity.
Yeah.
I can imagine myself being like, I really wish we could have had like a flashback or something to Doctori Alpha, like, and just saw what her family was like before they got horrifically attacked by Klingons.
Yeah. And honestly, now that the casting is done, and surely the events of this season things will depend on that, but other flashbacks would be possible, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, eventually that kid they have playing child Burnham is gonna
grow out of the role.
She already looks
probably
a little bit
pretty
older.
quick.
Yeah.
Like she already looks a little bit older now than she looked in the season 1 flashbacks they did. So
they grow up so fast. But
well, that's how children work.
Yeah, that's true. What else we got, Father?
Well, I did want to say something about the mom. People like to complain on the internet that the whole universe orbits around Michael Burnham. Mm-hmm. There is now an in-universe explanation for that. The whole universe orbits around Michael Burnham's mom.
Right.
And of course she takes care of her daughter, so...
Although, one thing now, if we go back and rewatch season 1, anytime Michael Burnham is in danger... Now we can just be like, well, she was never actually in danger because her mom was about to swoop in and save her. So
that's just like saying we already know she's going to survive this scene because we've seen the episode before.
True. It's also a little bit like that Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones didn't matter in that sort of thing. It's like, all right, were you enjoying the drama of the scene or not? Move on.
Well, I just... you could say, Michael, how much other fiddling did the angel do with Michael's timeline? Did Michael end up being raised by Sarek and Amanda because of the Red Angel?
Or did she
did she hook her up with Georgiou?
Did she strangle Cybok in his crib?
Well, we're moving out of prime timeline territory with that statement.
We gotta keep it prime.
But
we know the cage still happens.
Yeah, well, yeah, I wonder, she talks about, I was there for everything. I've also been spending 800 attempts at changing history. You got to wonder if some of those were to make your daughter's life a little better.
Do you think that maybe she occasionally just went back to make sure she got a better grade on a test score?
I don't know if she'd bother with something like that, but making sure she got some good parents, a good starship captain, got rescued by Lorca instead of going to a penal colony.
I don't know if she was that involved, because she does seem kind of distant when she's like, I've seen you die 100 times.
Yeah, well, it does appear at some point she gave up on that. But how many times did she tweak things before giving up?
I do kind of like that cold distance, because I feel like that is what would happen if you're like the scientist and you've watched your kid die and you've watched the timeline reset after all the little alterations you've made.
I was very much, why doesn't the mom want to talk to Michael? What the hell is up? And then when I heard her reasons, I was like, okay, I buy it.
I actually thought it was... I'm sorry, go ahead, Hal.
Yeah, I was gonna say it does make perfect sense. I think that's something that we don't often think about enough with time travel, is that you would see a lot of people die that you love, and even if you change history, and what is that like that she would have seen her daughter die 100 times? Yeah,
we're used to like the sort of the Groundhog Day idea where somebody might live a life like 100 times in order to, very often the kind of the cliche of that is to either just avert some event or improve as a person. But here it's something where she's seen so much bad stuff that she's still devoted to the mission, but she's just numb to everything. She's just like burned out on it.
And she moves that church that was going to blow up in World War III to her planet.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh yeah, apparently I can do this. Like, kind of like disregards it, like, well, now there's like a community of people there that are gonna like have a society and like, grow up and like build their own little culture. But it's just like, it's like this cold scientist who's just like...
No, she decided to, can I change history? I will try to save some people's lives. And do it in such a way that it won't affect history as I know it. By putting them 50,000 light years away, nothing that happens on that planet would have affected her own development or created any paradoxes up until that point.
50,000 light years is really, really fucking far in Star Trek terminology.
Yes.
That's like half the length of the galaxy. It would take Voyager 50 years to return home.
Yeah.
From 50,000 light years.
Yeah.
Basically 10,000 light years a year.
So it felt like both a responsible experiment, but also an ethical one. You know, if I'm going to change things, I'm going to try to make people's lives better. Yeah. I'm going to save some people who died. I like that.
But you didn't get wrapped up until like the aftermath of it is what I'm saying. Like, because she has... Like, at this point, you would have to be kind of emotionally detached, or else you would just be constantly heartbroken when everything you do leads to all life in the galaxy being wiped out.
Yeah. We've all been there.
But I really loved the character. I loved how they wrote some of her dialogue. She had a bunch of really cool lines, like, time is savage, it always wins.
I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about time as an entity, as time as a force, as a sapience, a will.
I don't know if I liked it as a Trek idea, but it's an idea I've liked, and I remember it being used in I might have even brought this up before in this particular podcast, is in Stephen King's 1963, when you try to change time, time pushes back. And the bigger the change you're making, the harder it pushes back. So, like, weird things will happen, seemingly almost supernatural things. Yeah. And it was a time travel as, like, more as supernatural than science. Yeah. So, on that level, it didn't quite seem right for Star Trek for me.
I agree with you. Like, I don't really like that being in Star Trek, even though they've tried to put that in Star Trek before.
Yeah, and it does explain...
It explains
like the Kelvin universe and the Mirror universe, if there is some guiding hand shaping this stuff.
And there was
on the other hand, do we want a time god in the Star Trek universe?
Well, does there have to be does it have to be cognizant of pushing back, or could it be like a reaction as if it were like an entity, like a cell defending itself and just trying to push things back?
That's how I look at it.
That's at least my baseline assumption. It doesn't need a cue behind it.
What it tends to push, though, is people, if we're going to go with this theory. Which means that people, sapient people, are somehow more important to the universe than events are.
And ships, and like the names of ships.
Yeah.
And the designs of
them. So that we're still elevating people and culture in some fashion, even if it is some sort of automatic reaction.
There is a deleted scene in Star Trek 09 in which Spock Prime, Leonard Nimoy, explains to Chris Pine Kirk that time is trying to align itself to match the Prime timeline, and that's why he needs to go be the captain of the Enterprise, and the whole crew will be there and all that. That ended up being cut out of the movie, but it's on the DVD and the Blu-ray.
I think it's kind of dramatically fun to talk about time as if it were a living entity pushing back and stuff like that. It's an interesting notion, but yeah, it's one that I don't necessarily want to think about too hard, or I don't want them to ever... I wouldn't want them to particularly codify that. I'd rather it be a somewhat mysterious, non-understood process.
But yeah, I don't think we're actually going to have like time itself as like a character.
Like it would in Marvel Comics, where Eternity is a guy with a toga.
Yeah, you have Eternity, and you also have
popped collar.
And Sandman on the DC side. You had
Destiny,
Destiny would have been the time creature. So, I think we all really like Mama Burnham. Mm-hmm. And one cool thing that she did was when she told Pike, "You're a ghost to me," in what did she say? Like, in a graveyard of 1,000 trillion dead or whatever, and she says, like, "I've seen your future, and it's not nice," or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So we know things don't go to hell in the next 10 years too badly.
Spock saw the vision of the galaxy being destroyed, and we know that Mama Burnham had her home base about 1,000 years in the future,
which is when Calypso took place.
I wonder if there could be any connection.
Now, there were organic life forms living in the time of Calypso, though,
right? Because there was war going on.
Yeah, you had Kraft, and he had been at war. So with the Vidreish. Yeah. So we'll have to wait and see if they do return to that and explain some of that. we get so many explanations in this episode, though. Like, why the Red Angel contacted Spock. Apparently, like, he needed, or she needed his dyslexia to communicate. He's the only person who could understand her.
Which, again, makes me feel like somehow Burnham being adopted by Sarek might be the Angel's doing, because it's very convenient that her daughter's a foster brother ends up being the guy that she can talk to, unless that was arranged.
You know, for some reason that idea almost always bugs me in fiction, the notion of like something going around and moving the chess pieces behind our backs. Yeah. And I think part of it, we talked about this a little bit last week, is because I want sort of responsibility or blame to sort of fall upon our shoulders. Thematically, it feels unfair.
Yeah. I don't want every one of Michael Burnham's like accomplishments or achievements or victories to be like
failures.
It was because her mom helped her. It's because her mom.
I wouldn't want it to say all of them, but I'm saying that you do have to go back and look over the list a little bit now and with a new light.
I was about to say Burnham would be the first person to have a helicopter mom to not even know she did have a helicopter mom.
You know, she's got the blades.
I know, she looks like a helicopter.
I'm imagining a George Lucas treatment of all the prior episodes where any flashbacks, they're going to go and CG in a little peeking Red Angel around the corner, just in every flashback.
A little bit of red
wispiness. We also get a little bit of explanation as how like that time suit works with, like, we know that it used the time crystal, but one of my problems with last week was that like I felt like they shouldn't make it that easy that you can just like build a time traveling suit as long as you find like a rare crystal.
Well, I mean, they had been researching
how rare it is,
but they had been researching it a fair amount and research fighting with Klingons, I guess.
They explained that it needed the power of a supernova,
right?
Which
not something you can casually achieve.
Yeah, even though they say there's a supernova every 1 second in the universe, but the universe is a big place.
Like, right.
In Star Trek Voyager, they established the Federation has only witnessed a handful of supernovas.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4, like not very many.
And even if you find one, harnessing something like that's got to be tricky and dangerous.
Do you think there's any that there is more than just coincidence that Michael mentioned that factoid, given that that's what powers them?
I mean, I think that was mentioned just to explain that to the audience that a supernova gives off more power than our sun does in 10 billion
just to get that
years.
out there.
And it works. We know that was a big fascination of hers as a kid with supernovas.
It seems like an appropriate dramatic thing to have a quest to go on find a supernova to get a new time crystal.
And we don't know how rare these crystals are either, do we?
I need to know more about the time crystals, because that really annoys me. And if they explain it later, it's something they're setting up to build on, or just like a little string they're leaving, and then in a future season they can go and pull on that and like add some more to the time crystal. I'd be down for that.
It doesn't quite feel like that's what Disco likes to mess with. As I mentioned before, it feels their approach has more of a foot in the Galactica standard of don't explain. But they do have more interest in occasional explanations than Galactica did, so maybe.
As long as they don't make time crystals common, I'm fine with it.
Right.
As long as you can assume that they are super rare and come across once every few hundred years.
It just seems like it's just like a big plot convenience.
It seems like a pretty stereotypical plot.
Yeah. I guess I can totally see Section 31 and the Klingons being interested in developing temporal technology after all the temporal war stuff we see in Archer's Day.
Yeah.
They would absolutely be looking into that. I want to fanboy and say that some Borg tech was collected by Section 31, which might explain how Section 31 was able to build a suit that is so advanced, and they were able to build it 20 years ago, and where we got these nanites that can take people over.
And why Control wants to destroy everybody because it's been influenced by the Borg?
I don't know if I'm going to say Control is doing Borg, but Control might be using Borg tech that was collected from Enterprise.
I'm glad, Brian, that you mentioned the Borg, because I wanted to bring this up.
Oh, okay.
This has been a big thing going around online today, that I saw like a lot of this like dominating Twitter. People are already starting to assume that Discovery is giving us the origin of the Borg with Leland. And
that doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's time travel involved. So we know that the Borg existed in the Delta Quadrant for hundreds of years. If somehow like they defeat Controlland by sending him through like some Red Angel temporal wormhole, and he ends up in the Delta Quadrant 1,000 years in the past. He could be like the creator of the Borg.
I suppose. Okay.
Yeah.
It makes their kind of black outfit look kind of a prescient notion about it. It's not crazy.
I mean, he's already bald, so just put some...
It wouldn't be the dumbest thing.
Oh, so you're saying every bald person is just a step away from being an evil cyborg?
I'm saying every bald person will look like a Borg if you just glue some black plastic circuitry on their head.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Father, would you be into this notion if they did it? I kind of...
No.
It's a little incestuous concept-wise. I also don't like heroes that accidentally create their own villains. That never liked the argument that the Joker wouldn't be around but for Batman and stuff like that, because it always means...
This would mean the Borg created themselves, but if you go with my idea that they're using Borg tech from leftover from First Contact to ground this stuff.
There's your grandfather paradox.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
But there was like it's passed by the Federation often enough that it would sort of bug me that it was like within their grasp to stop it, and that they were there at the sort of birth of it.
Yeah. I would not, if I was in charge, it would not be the origin of the Borg, but I could actually see the writers saying, "This is cool, let's do it."
They're promoting this as like, you're not going to believe what happens at the end of season 2. It's going to be so big.
It does speak to that concept. I could see it now. Otherwise, yeah, it's a slightly odd thing to go to have Leland taken over the way he was and all that. They could have continued with holographic
even
stuff.
with the black veins and stuff, and which is a Borg thing.
The nanites had like little green lights on them, which like Borg technology
did
often
they?
has like
Okay,
green
yeah.
lights.
I missed the green lights.
man.
Yeah. So
And Controlland says in this episode, struggling is pointless. It's another way of saying...
Oh man,
Wow.
resistance is futile. Yeah.
Okay, I think that might be where we're heading.
Yeah, my problem with it is just it just seems really weird that like if the Borg and the Federation had like all these encounters so early, and then it like with Enterprise we do see like Borg contact the Borg in the Delta Quadrant, so you would think like, well, this is why like the Borg show up in the Next Generation to like attack the neutral zone outpost in season 1 before Q introduced Picard to the Borg.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird. Like, there's all like these precursors to like something like the best of both worlds. Like, well, why didn't if the Borg knew about Earth for so long? If they were actually like created by an Earthman merging with like a Federation computer entity, you'd think like, well, they would have like came and assimilated Earth a lot earlier.
We hold Earth in a special position, but I don't know if the universe does. I don't know if to the Borg it's that important. It's kind of what the heart of the Federation.
They were gardening. They were waiting till the Federation developed enough technology to be worth harvesting.
I'll accept it. It's just it's like
there were other interesting things out in the Delta Quadrant where they got stuck that they to work on.
Yes.
Building cubes and transwarp corridors. I would be okay with it. I guess, but I'm kind of like preparing myself now to accept it because it is not. I think what y'all are saying is like none of us want that as where the show.
I can live with it, but it isn't what I would do if I was in charge.
Yeah, if it does happen, I hope they sell me on it with a few other twists and turns that make me go, oh yeah.
Whereas I would actually go with this is based on a quick line about this is based on some old tech recovered before the founding of the Federation that led us to build these suits and these nanotech, and leave it vague and let fans draw their own conclusions. But
I think they're going to want
that it could have been the Borg.
If they're talking about something big going down, then I bet they want it to be front and center.
Yeah. No, I don't. That's not the big twist. I'm sure.
I feel kind of like with having the mirror universe being what would have been the big twist in season 1 if Jonathan Frakes hadn't blabbed. I feel like they might be trying to do something that big.
Yeah.
Bringing in one of the most iconic Trek villain races.
Yeah.
The people who don't consider disco to be real are going to love it.
Well.
Yeah, but F them.
We're now at a point where like they can kind of excuse Discovery if they want, because they can just be like, "Oh, the Red Angel altered all the timelines."
Yes,
stuff.
Yeah.
Even Michael being hooked up with Sarek is Sarek. might be a Red Angel thing too. They can really out themselves if they want to just say.
To me, it's clearly still a prime timeline because we know that the cage happens, like we saw flashbacks of that. But if you're one of those people who just like refuse to accept reality, I mean, this will give you a door to
it's a slightly different reality.
It seems to be that time travel gives pretty much in Star Trek anyone an excuse to come up with their own personal canon that they. Whatever they want.
Yeah, like a lot of people excuse Enterprise as like, oh, that was all in an alternate timeline because of the temporal Cold War. They just like refuse to accept that as part of the continuity.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think my personal belief is every time somebody goes back in time in Star Trek, history is slightly changed, even if it isn't terribly noticeable. So, what is the prime timeline? There's layer upon layer upon layer at this point.
Well, we know we got people in the far future that maintain the timeline.
Yeah. And they keep things more or less on track so that it's pretty much the same no matter which version of these you look at.
But if you do accept that, if you have like a Baxter or Daniels type character who's always in like the far future.
Braxton, I thought, wasn't it?
Braxton. Yeah. Then Baxter is Babylon 5. But if you accept that, it does kind of mean that like, well, if that's the truth, then none of these time travel stories have high stakes because someone's just going to come along and fix it.
Just because there are some police and they are trying to keep crime under control doesn't mean they're omniscient and doesn't mean they're going to be able to solve every problem.
True,
right. They may. Do we assume that police keep all of our crime under control?
Yes. They try. They're helpful. It's better to have them than not. But they are not.
Well, that's debatable.
Well, okay. I wasn't trying to go there with it, but
when
in an idealized universe,
when Control is talking to Leland right before it nanites him, I did think it was interesting that it kind of tried to sell him on the idea like, hey, don't fight this because what I'm doing is just a realization of what Section 31 wants, which is ends justify the means, peace in the galaxy kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting to kind of overtly equate the, Section 31's manipulation with the, I don't know, like nihilistic fascism of the Borg or whatever you would call their approach.
Yeah.
I will say this, that if the Borg if Control turns out to create the Borg and Section 31 had this problem, then once and for all, we can settle that debate about whether it's necessary to have entities like Section 31, and the answer would be no. Whatever good they do is outweighed by the bad. But
well, arguably that's an interesting metaphor then for because there's such a clear analog to agencies like the CIA to their broad use in the world. That's in it. It could itself become a theme.
Well, I would love that story because I think we don't need those agencies. I think that they cause more trouble than.
That seems to be the message they're giving us so far.
How many power vacuums have been created in the world by, seemingly overthrowing a dictator only to have no idea what to do with a destabilized mess afterwards? Yeah. It sort of works as a metaphor for that. Clearly, very different in the specifics, but, similar kind of notions.
Yeah, but they're not beating us over the head with it, so it's a good balance.
Yeah, like we had to kind of poke at that before it kind of seemed like a theme.
Yeah.
By the same token, I would be interested to see, now I'm getting inspired, to see a story where, what if we didn't say that, changing history is always bad. What if we went through history and we made every change that was good and see the universe that was the best of all possible worlds come into existence?
Violation of the temporal prime directive.
Well, it is. But I would be interested. I would be interested in general to see a story. What if you say, well, no, if and maybe of course, if you can truly have all these alternate universes in Star Trek and there's different timelines, then what if there was one timeline,
timeline,
the best timeline?
I think that'd be an interesting story to tell at some point. Where somebody is doing this and. It seems like the kind of thing where obviously it feels like it could go wrong in ways, but it would be interesting to see it a mostly right one and like get a vision of what that would be like, or how that might be manipulated by other timelines.
What if
that was the one that the timeline that everybody wanted to essentially immigrate to? You know,
what if the season ends with like one of those things where they're kind of like staring into a time portal, and it's kind of like a montage of all this stuff from, we see clips of like the original series and Next Generation and DS9 and Voyager.
Yeah.
Just be like, oh yeah, like we fixed all the timeline issues, and you know, now like we don't have to worry about Control wiping everyone out, and we get to have like this cool future. And we see that like, oh yeah, it's the future where all those Star Trek adventures that we know happen.
So maybe instead of getting Section 31 Borg, instead what we get is that we somehow find the Guardian on the edge of forever, and we go into the future and save Michael's mom that way. That might be our big reveal.
A Guardian of Forever coming out of this would be interesting.
Maybe that's where the time crystals come from.
That would be more in that. Yeah, a search for time crystals.
There's sugar crystals for the magic time donut.
That would be more in line with staying. I mean, in the spirit of Star Trek, because I do see, especially when you read that plot summary, and I'm like, okay, we do have all the regular Star Trek plot points. It may seem edgy and modern, but Discovery really is, really is classic Star Trek. So I could see us, instead of going in the Borg direction, to go the Guardian of the Edge of Forever.
It'd be an interesting fake out if that's the thing. By the way, the Guardian is like a rock-like portal, right?
Yeah.
Like crystalline
on a crystal
rock.
planet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually guard anything. Like doped up McCoy just like ran straight into it and ruined the timeline.
Guardian of Forever is a cool name.
Yeah, yes.
But also, when it's just glowing and there's no, like before you see scenes, is it red?
No.
Okay, just checking.
I do need to ask y'all though, what do you think Control's objective is? Because I feel they somehow haven't explained that.
Yeah.
Like, if they do become the Borg, why are the Borg trying to destroy all life? Or is that what
the
Control...
Borg aren't trying to destroy all life.
I know, but why would Control do that in the future?
It is one of those, like, you know how in, this is my comic book reference for the episode, Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen says that he finds that there's nothing special about life, that there's the same number of cells in an inert dead body, and that's just as fascinating to him in his very kind of coldly clinical, sees all time simultaneously way. What if their initial goal is total peace and order by eliminating all life?
That's so trite, though. That's so cliche.
Sure, but
that'd be so disappointing.
But what if it's something like that, or they decide that there's something like that, but their values alter along the way, and we get the Borg as we know them, or Leland, who's only got half this information.
Like now,
that's why it's half his instincts and kind of his own his need to control rather than destroy.
Now that Control has like a taste of like an organic organism, he's like, oh, this biological stuff's pretty cool. Like let's assimilate some more.
I can see how a program designed to protect the Federation maybe could turn into the Borg if it got like kicked too hard.
Right.
But I'm like, how the heck do you get from a program that's supposed to protect the Federation to destroy all sapient life in the galaxy? It's like Ultron in the Avengers movie. Right. I was like, you had one job, keep the people on Earth safe, and that's the only thing you want to do is destroy all the people. How did you get from A to B?
I'm guessing that it's something along the lines of that the computer, as an intelligence computer, can predict 99% but can't get that 1% down, and that drives it nuts, or something like that.
It's kind of like the V'ger thing, where it needs that human instinct to leap before we look.
What if it was like some weird thing where it was like does not become the Borg, but was trying to counter the Borg, and it's like, well, there's life throughout all these infinite number of galaxies in the universe, and we always focus just on a single galaxy in Star Trek. What if it's like, well, I'm going to eradicate all life in this galaxy so the Borg can't take it over, and use that as a staging ground to infect all these other galaxies? Maybe it's got a altruistic goal in its way.
I don't know.
That would be better than the other idea you had.
I think if we all got turned into Borg, that would be better than if we were all dead. But
But if it prevented us from destroying all life in other galaxies.
Right. It's
Andromeda.
It's thinking of, I'm going to step on this ant mound, and it'll save every form of life everywhere else, because otherwise it looks like the Borg are going to do this.
That is
just a random example. I don't think that's what they're doing, but like if ways you could shoehorn some other ideas.
Y'all agree? Like we don't really know what its objectives are. But
it has not been stated.
Beyond getting the sphere data, like we know it has to do that to complete its evolution. But but what are you going to do after you evolve?
Yeah.
Or does it not know?
Presumably it'll figure that out when it gets there, just like V'ger does.
I like sorry.
Well, I would... this is kind of a new topic, so finish whatever you're saying.
I was just going to note, when it was talking to Leland, I liked that it's... I don't know if this had been explained before, that when it said... the reason it chose a Vulcan for its hologram and the initial ruse was because Vulcans were easier to imitate, because they were more logical and more machine-like in that sense, and so it had to change up its game when it was going to go with a human form, or like a less logical race, I guess.
Yeah, they're easier for an emotionless computer to imitate.
It was just kind of nice to see some of those little plot pieces line up, some explanations for small things like that.
Yeah.
What do you got, Brian?
I had back when Arium got infected.
The most memorable character ever. We were all heartbroken when she died.
And when Arium got infected, I was like, and then we saw the episode where she's trying to mess with the big space station, the Section 31 space station. I thought, well, we've clearly got the Red Angel on one side trying to stop the force in the future from destroying things. And then we have a force in the future that infected a probe and infected Arium to try to mess with control, to upgrade control in the space station. And I assume that must be control in the future, because a third faction involved in all of this would be silly. And they're only going to have 2 future factions, not 3. But now they've revealed the Red Bursts apparently are a third faction of some sort. I think they might have even used the word faction. So after I was like, wow, okay, there is a third faction.
And I think that might be Michael, if she's somehow using a Red Angel suit in the future. Maybe she uses the Red Burst to send a signal to everyone to contact Spock to give him a vision of it.
Yeah.
Since we know he's the person you can communicate to when you're wearing the Red Angel suit.
Yeah.
We still have some more mysteries to unpack in the remaining 3 episodes of the season.
Yeah.
I have one other topic I want to cover, and then I'll turn it over to any of y'all if you have anything to add. But I want to talk just a little bit about Georgiou in this episode. And the Georgiou-Tyler relationship. I think they're setting up the 2 of them both being on that upcoming Section 31 show.
For sure.
I kind of liked watching them here.
Well, it was interesting that how he kind of was the first person to, in a way, stand up against her, even though he was also working with her. But he clearly wasn't going to completely take her shit. Or was at least poking back a little bit. Wasn't he you gotta ask me nice or something like that?
Yeah, when she's like, if you betray me, I'll kill you. And then she's like, go check on Leland, see what he does in the dark. He's like, well, you gotta say please, so...
Yeah, and when she said that he's like, I've already been dead too, and he was kind of countering her. It was a little bit more playful in that sense, whereas everybody else had kind of seemingly been stepped on by
I can see the Section 31 show. I'm still a little skeptical. I'll give it a fair shot, but I can see it working with the 2 of them.
I can see it working, and I'd give it a shot, but I just feel like there'd be so much more interesting things to do than Section 31, because that just seems like, we have plenty of other TV shows of spies and intrigue and stuff. It doesn't seem like we need that for Star Trek.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not the Star Trek spinoff I would make, but it's the one that we're going to get.
One of the ones, but
yes. Yeah, one of the ones.
I will. I guess I love their interactions. I love the characters and how they all interact.
And the fight.
Yeah, and the fight and all of that. I still think that, especially if you're going to be trying to push this ludicrous Georgiou redemption kind of thing, that she needs to die. I don't want her to get her own show. She needs to die at the end of this season, saving everybody or
maybe
something.
Maybe she dies at the end of her show. But they do tease that she will self-sacrifice at some point.
Well, I was going to say that's
to save Michael, and I'm okay with that, but I want her to die. She needs to die.
She did say there's something interesting. Is here's a question. This sort of relates to that.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have sympathy for her?
No.
Even though she said that everything she learned was from her mother teaching her to survive, we know she became a monster. We know she became about as bad as it's conceivable for a person to get.
She has to admit that she did something wrong, and she has yet to do that. There's no sign of repentance.
Sure, but
her actions are worse than any like real life human who has ever lived. Like no one has like genocided entire planets.
Star Trek always took ideas that from our small human scale and exploded them into bigness. Like they would have casually. Didn't they have that amoeba destroy?
Yeah, I mean, if you count up the number of nuclear missiles that Captain Kirk and Picard have launched, and when you look at the photon torpedoes, it is kind of
to some degree. I guess my point is that scale in Star Trek is always kind of a weird relative thing, and I don't necessarily always take it at face value. Sometimes it's just a big version of what we know.
I think now is not the time nor place, and I don't think Star Trek would be the medium to show a incredibly xenophobic fascist dictator turn out to be a good guy.
What if it wasn't
I reject that.
What if it was come to terms with how horrible she was?
Then she needs to go back to the mirror universe and try to bring down what remains of the Terran Empire.
What if she did that?
Then I'd be like, okay, well, she did the right thing.
Okay, I was just like Star Trek. I feel like at its heart has to include the notion of redemption as a possibility.
But I'd still want her to die.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We've got the vengeful ones here.
A heroic death, or at least... But I feel like, if there's going to be any redemption for her character, because she has been truly awful, well, first of all, in order to have redemption, you have to actually show remorse for the things that you've done, and she hasn't done that. And then second of all, you've got to want, try to do good in the future, and maybe she's doing this, but maybe there's her own selfish interests.
I finally feel like I kept wondering, what is she doing with Section 31? I think she's just having fun. I think running around doing evil deeds is just her vacation because she doesn't know what else to do with herself.
She was bored on Cronus.
Yeah. I think
the brothel.
I thought maybe she had some master plan to take over. I think she's just having fun.
I don't know
Section
about
31
that.
Is just fun for her.
I like that idea, but I think that Leland, he got under her skin by saying that with the Red Angel out there, she will always be sort of number 2 in power, and that only motivates someone to act if there's some truth to it. She was. I think that she may have a little bit of grand design.
She was jealous of Mama Burnham.
That too, for sure.
And I am starting to accept that, okay, so this Georgiou does have, like, some genuine tender feelings for Michael, but I think that just comes from...
could be a monster who has maternal instincts.
Yes, right. Yes. Because she was a mother in the Terran universe to that Michael Burnham, who betrayed her, and this is a Michael Burnham who wants to be loyal to her, so I can see her being like, oh, you're like the daughter I never had.
We have finally reached a point where we can look back on season 1 and say Michael's choice to rescue evil Georgiou instead of evil Lorca was perhaps the right choice, because in this episode, I don't think evil Lorca would have come through for them like evil Georgiou did. So, even though she had no way of knowing it at the time, she made the right call.
It's interesting. It's a good perspective there. It's a good point.
Hindsight is 20/20, but she made the right call.
He wouldn't have had those maternal instincts for Michael, but we know he did want to sleep with her.
Right.
It was like a big part of his...
I'm going to save her so I can take her to bed.
But I don't see Lorca trying as hard and being as successful.
No, yeah.
I don't think Lorca would have taken that beating from. I think he would. No, I'm not going to fight the cyborg thing.
Fatheree, you mentioned the fight scene, super badass fight scene, and I love that Georgiou. Like we saw, Ash Tyler is a badass fighter. We know this for a fact, and he was like essentially one shot killed or nearly killed by what are we calling him?
Controlland?
By Controlland. Yeah. And then here she is, like, holding her own for, like, minutes on end because she's such a badass fighter. She's clearly, like, the best fighter in the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, possibly.
Certainly at present. She, at least among the characters
has
we know.
Has the best stunt coordinators anyways.
And also being played by Michelle Yeoh.
Right.
An incredible martial art.
It might bear more.
Martial
what
artist.
is she, 50-something or something like that? And like the best fighter that we've seen on the show?
She's also the reason why I think Dave is obsessed with finding a way to forgive Georgiou, just because he likes Michelle Yeoh.
No, I think there are genuine interesting questions to ask here about the depths of of rehabilitation and what makes a person and nature and nurture and things like that. But we can talk about that
if they want to give us that in Section 31, I'll at least take a look. But
yeah,
the series, that is. I will say, connected to this, when Tyler was asked to go steal the data, I was like, okay, Tyler, this is it. I've been kind of meh on your character ever since season 1. If you go and betray Michael, you are dead to me in this show. You are right there with Georgiou and the needs to die list. And he did the right thing, and I like him a little more now.
I want him to stay alive because I want to cheer for him in the Section 31
Actually,
show.
see, I want him on Discovery. I don't want him going off on Section 31. He needs to renounce those bozos and become a proper Starfleet officer.
I know, but he's actually like a hero I can cheer for in that show.
Right.
Well, I get it, but I would just prefer there not a no Section 31 show, and Georgiou dies and Tyler stays on Discovery.
That'll be the timeline
Yeah.
you make when you get the red
Yes,
angel suit.
when I get my red, mine will be a blue angel, but
my geek out moment was when they dropped some Shakespeare in there because I'm a Shakespeare nerd.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up.
From
Hamlet.
Yep, and a slight misquote that I still like that they used.
Did you say Hamlet? Hell yeah.
Yeah, yes. Actually, I'm not even quite sure why she said that, but I think it was. I was with her. I was just like, I like that in Star Trek there's a historical case, or there's a case of a dialogue of someone saying Hamlet, hell yeah. So the line is this. What Spock said was, "Time is out of joint, oh cursed spite, that ever I was born to set it right." The actual quote is, "The time is out of joint." That's the only tweak. And is actually not meant, of course, in the time travel sense, but he's like the times we live in is what Hamlet was talking about.
Yeah.
However, Spock was throughout this whole episode was adapting idioms, including what was the other one from Ancient Earth? Lao Tzu, is that how you say it?
I don't remember what it was, but I remember
he's an adaptive thinker, and he was taking it and using the phrase to mean time travel in this case.
In Star Trek, everyone who's gone to Starfleet Academy has read every piece of literature and has all of it memorized, and will just quote stuff on the spot all the time.
Yeah,
that's what we should all be yearning for.
Yeah.
You know, Carl Sagan always said that in addition to all his science stuff, that he had a potent liberal arts education with lots of with literature and all the rest in the mix, and that he felt it was like vitally important to who he was and to being a well-rounded person.
I thought Spock was pretty good in this episode. I enjoyed. I'm ready for the beard to come off now. I think we've
season finale.
I'm like really.
Season finale is gonna be in a blue shirt with no beard.
Yeah, we're like at the point where we don't need the beard. We are. I get it when he's all haggard and messed up in the head, but he's found his balance. He's back. We don't need the beard anymore.
I did love when when Burnham took a slight knock at that, when he's like, "Why don't you ask me something I can answer?" in the previous episode, and she's like, "Do you think the beard's working for you?" And he was like, he had a great expression in response to it.
I loved, my geek out moment was the chess set at the end, even though I already geeked out about the chess set a few episodes ago. I like that ending. I loved the fact that, yes, Michael has seen some shit and been through some shit in the last 48 hours, but she's going to be okay, and we're going to find a way to beat this. And I love that can-do Starfleet attitude.
Right. I think part of why I liked it was that quintessentially Trek ending,
and the fact that they symbolize it with the chess game. That was, they didn't just say we're going to beat this. They're like, no, we set up the chess set.
Yeah, we're going to do it with logic.
And that moment she reaches up for the chess beat, and then they cut right there into the credits or the trailer or whatever. I was like,
it's a beautiful.
That was an perfect.
The ball is in their court now. It's their move.
Yeah, yeah. Very nice.
But with our Easter eggs, they all happen to be things that we've already covered. We had Calypso being
the short Trek episode referenced.
Yeah, that time period being revisited.
Mm-hmm.
We have Pike's fate being mentioned, and we have the Hamlet that I was saving at the end. But I knew Dave was likely to jump into that early.
I couldn't hold it
because he is such a Shakespeare nerd.
Yep.
But yeah, the only other thing I have to add to that is that they do mention Deneva again, along with the Federation founder worlds, where they mention Deneva, the planet from Operation Annihilate in the original series. This episode where Kirk's brother lived, they got attacked by the flying fried eggs. So I wonder...
You mean the cool parasitic creatures that glide down from the ceiling?
I actually like that episode.
I do too.
I love the look of the Deneva colony. I am wondering if there's a reason why they're mentioning this planet twice.
That's an interesting point. They do tend to try and seed things when they can, except for Arium. But they've definitely worked at it a lot, and a lot of stuff has paid off.
But that's pretty much all that I caught as far as Easter eggs
There
goes.
was a potential, and maybe I'm just getting too numerology here, but near the beginning they say there's 841 log entries in the suit that they downloaded from the Red Angel suit.
What's the significance of that number?
Well, you can take the 1 and subtract it from the 8, and you've got a 4 and a 7.
That seems like a stretch. But
I don't know, but
I play those kind of games in my role-playing game all the time when I need a number that isn't. I don't want it to be too obviously a 47.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't surprise me if that.
I think you might be onto something.
But I do think, we're talking about numbers, I think it was weird that there's 7,000 ships in Starfleet. That is a lot.
Oh, did they say that?
Yes, after the Klingons have wiped out 80%, you have 7,000. Like, you better be counting shuttlecraft.
Yeah, wow, that was about what I was figuring. Like around 7 to 10 was about the height of the Federation during the Dominion War by my calculations.
Space is, as we've established, big.
I mean, they don't even. Do we even see a serial? I get a serial number. We don't hit 2,000
until the Excelsior.
Until the Excelsior, and that's decades from now.
But I'm just assuming that shuttlecraft are included, and tugs and little like moon shuttles.
Yeah,
everything.
Well, it's certainly Given if we assume that each ship carries as many shuttles as Voyager, every starship carries as many shuttles as Voyager.
Voyager just rebuilt shuttlecrafts.
So,
they proved that they could build new shuttlecrafts when they needed.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, they built the Delta
Well,
Flyer.
yes, but that seemed to be a big deal that they all had to stop and focus on that.
Because it was a big deal shuttlecraft.
Yeah, but certainly if you assume they carried that many shuttles, then you easily can account for that 7,000 number.
So, Dave, I think we have some subspace transmissions.
Yep. First one comes from Jude Beacom. This is from a YouTube comment. And after this amazing opening, top-notch analysis, as always, y'all, goes into some pretty, like an interesting argument here. And I like these comments. But first, he says, I think Anna nails it dead center when she says that Tyler is as much Voq as he is Ash, maybe even more so. Now, I was thinking when I started to read this, I'm like, I don't know about that. I still feel like he's
rubbish to me.
Ash with just a little bit of Voq, a lot of Voq memories, but that's all. But let me go ahead and let's go with, there's a numbered explanations here. Number 1. The season 1 finale makes this pretty clear when he is engaging in a riveting game of obliterate them with other Klingons, and afterwards when he makes the decision to essentially be Voq and remain on Kronos as L'Rell's torchbearer. Interesting point. That's a very Voq thing to do. Number 2, in the episode where L'Rell uses her power glove to fix Tyler, the follow-up After Track episode references Tuvix. That's a Voyager reference there. Tyler is now supposed to be an amalgamation of the two, and let's not forget that biologically he is Voq, surgically altered to look like a human with an engineered fake human personality grafted into his brain. Number 3, Voq was never depicted as a bad dude. He was a Klingon who was, as we saw with Cole playing him for a chump, noble to a fault. When he snapped Culbert's neck, he was a soldier deep behind enemy lines, defending himself from an enemy agent who was about to expose him. Now that he's been given the benefit of fake Tyler's perspective, and that deep and profound understanding of what makes a human from Seattle tick, the Federation is no longer this evil, threatening, antagonistic entity. Those interesting points here. He is Voq through and through, and parenthetically noting, hey, let's just try and smash the shit out of this future squid hacking our shuttle while everyone else tries to science their way out of it. But he's also more than Voq now, and looking at it from two characters who were so deeply entrenched in the Remain Klingon doctrine at the time, it's easy to see why L'Rell would think of him as dead after the procedure was complete. Anyway, I thought those were some reasonably interesting comments.
I think we could
That's
argue
the best argument for that I think can be said.
I'm not sure I buy it still, but like Nemesis said, nature versus nurture, nurture is a huge part of it, and if you have all of Voq's memories, you have all of Voq's nurture. So yes, Voq is going to be affecting Voq's perspectives will be affecting his decisions on some level, even if it's just the same way that Star Trek has affected our decisions because it's so part of our history and our memories and our knowledge.
And good job, Jude, mentioning the Nintendo Power Glove.
Jude also says, time crystals are fine in Star Trek. They were depicted as alien tech in magic to make the sanest man go mad, and aren't any weirder than a whale probe or an orb of prophecy. Further, they're based on real-life time crystals, which were very recently discovered / manufactured by scientists, or whatever. You can Wikipedia them for more info. I only glanced at the article, so I don't know how loose the tie is. I'd forgotten that's maybe a thing.
So someone had brought this to my attention previously, that time crystals are a real thing, but no one that I've talked to has been able to explain to me in layman terms what a real-life time crystal is. So I'm going to still consider that a made-up fantasy plot convenience until someone can actually explain to me what a time crystal is, IRL.
Time crystals are probably appear to be more real than tachyons. Let's start with there. You know, so if we're gonna throw tachyon all over the place like Voyager does, maybe it should be okay to throw time crystal.
What do you got, Holly?
I mean, a time crystal is obviously the thing you need to make your time machine work, that you go on a quest for, and what the super rare material that your villain needs, and why there's a war.
Yeah, it's a MacGuffin.
Your unobtainium.
Nature's own flux capacitor.
Yes.
Yes.
We close out here from Jude with saying, thanks for remaining my #1 destination for a fantastic disco analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude.
Great Red Angel theories on Neelix and Morn. I'm thoroughly disappointed it didn't turn out that way. I had all my chips down on the big reveal to end up being Moogie.
Yeah.
You guys tell me who that is.
That is Quark and Rom's mother.
Okay. Rewriting history to ensure a cornered 24th century market for Sluggo Cola, the slimiest cola in the galaxy.
The slimiest cola in the galaxy.
And then we have a short comment from Robert Q. Garza from Facebook, who says...
Yeah, Robert Q. Garza has been a long-time Tex-Trekker, so thank you for the... I guess we're coming up on years of support, and he does really outstanding fan art.
This small nod was accompanied with a beautiful drawing of a portrait of Burnham that I noticed uses hatching and cross-hatching to really nice effect to delineate the form on it. And it says, okay, this is a seriously excellent show that just happens to be Star Trek. Bravo to the birthday girl, the most excellent Sonequa Martin Green, for a great piece of acting. Bravo. And I especially after that last episode we just saw, I gotta really say, man, she has come through hugely in this season, and especially in this last episode. So well deserving of his really awesome portrait.
Yeah, and happy birthday, Sonequa Martin Green. Apparently her birthday was like last week when the last episode aired. She's like 33 or 34. Right. I don't know. She's like close to the same age.
If Facebook is right, I think that as we are recording this, it's either Marina Sirtis' birthday or like the day after it.
Well, it's some Trek person's birthday every day, pretty much.
As well, it should be.
I get the notifications. Every day. But yeah, Robert Q. Garza, thank you for the support and the comment and the fan art. And I just want to throw this out there. If you ever got some free time and you want to draw any Star Trek podcasters / YouTubers, by all means, me and Dave would love a self-portrait.
Of us as a Ferengi. I'm just throwing out a thought. I don't know if the Ferengi don't have facial hair, but
however you want to do it, we would be honored and appreciate it.
It'd be dope, and also at the same time unsettling.
Yeah. Robert Q. Garza, fellow Texan, I believe.
Oh, rock on, man.
So that is everything we have for Perpetual Infinity, but of course we will be back Sunday talking about next week's episode that, according to Wikipedia, I haven't found this anywhere else, but they just released the title for the next episode. According to Wikipedia, Through the Valley of Shadows.
Ooh.
Which sounds epic and ominous, and I believe the Klingons will return, and we might even see a Klingon D7.
Man, they name dropped him in the first episode, I think, or the
third
second
episode.
Was it that far in? I am so ready for that. I'm very hyped for at this possibility. If it doesn't happen, I'll probably cry.
Well, we know what'll happen because it's in the trailer.
Hell yeah.
Sorry for the mild spoilers there, but
It's all right.
check us out Sunday to see what we think about that. And as always, until next time,
Live
long and prosper, y'all.
Thank all of you so much for checking out this installment of Tex-Trek. I hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to like our YouTube videos and subscribe to our channel. Audio-only version of episodes are available at our website, www.tex-trek.com. Please check out our site, especially if you just want an audio-only podcast. We have that available for you. Y'all can also keep up with us online. You can follow us on Twitter at Tex-Trek, or you can check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/tex-trek. Please, by all means, let us know what you think by dropping a comment anywhere you see fit. We definitely want to hear your feedback. Let us know what you liked and what you would like to see more of, what you would like to see differently going forward. If you want to email me directly, go ahead. I can be reached at fathereeactual@tex-trek.com. Thank all y'all again. Take care.